Okay, welcome everybody. I'm Lauren Barker. I'm the CEO of Cape Cod Young Professionals, and we're here with the second in our series of video podcasts that we've just started rolling out. Today, I am joined by the wonderful team at our MassHire Cape and Islands Workforce Board and Career Center, and I'm going to let them go through and introduce themselves very quickly. We'll start with Kara.
Good morning, I'm Kara Galvin. I'm the Executive Director of the MassHire Workforce Board here on the Cape and Islands.
And Martha, let's go to you next.
And I am Martha Burzycki, who is the Director of Education and Special Projects at the Career Center.
And Neila.
And hello, I'm Neila Neary, and I'm the Business Services Manager working most closely with the employers and businesses here on the Cape.
Wonderful. Well, we are really grateful to you all for taking the time out of your very busy schedules to join us today. On this call with all three of you, we have just a wealth of knowledge. And one of the things that we're trying to do through this podcast series is to connect our greater community with some of the wonderful expertise that we have in our local organizations and businesses here on the Cape. And for your group, MassHire Cape and Islands Workforce Board and Career Center do so much for the community and are both job seekers and employers. CCYP is grateful to call the Workforce Board a sponsor of our organization and actually the sponsor of this session, so we're very grateful for that. And I want to just give you a few minutes for those that aren't familiar with the Workforce Board and the Career Center and what you do. Can you just tell us a little bit about you and about what you do?
Sure. Thank you first and foremost, Lauren, for hosting this session. I think it will provide a lot of people really good information on the services that are being provided, especially those that are being affected by the pandemic. Oftentimes I say that the Career Center system as a whole is one that people they're not aware of until they need it, unfortunately, whether it's an employer or a job seeker. It's almost like a hidden jewel. But our Career Center system across the state is an amazing resource for job seekers and employers. And at this point, as we're navigating this very uncharted territory now with this pandemic, it's going to be a huge resource for those in our community. And both Martha and Neila will get into specifics, the services that they provide, but I think it's really important for people that are listening to really be aware of not only the services that job seekers can take part in on site, but that Martha will get into this, but that they've been able to provide services online and that they're still providing services now while they're, although closed to foot traffic, they've been able to provide services to job seekers, which is so critical during this time. I mean, job seekers just need somebody to speak to. I think it's so critical right now.
Great. So,
Again,
oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Lauren, again, thank you for having us. I agree with Kara, and I always say when I do presentations that the job centers, the MassHire Career Centers in Massachusetts are the world's best kept secret. And I don't know why that is, but it continues to be that way. And I think as we go forward, we will certainly, try to explain to people what we offer. So if folks coming here to our Career Center here in Hyannis, currently we are closed to foot traffic. When we do plan on reopening in the next few weeks, we will have limited traffic in here, and that's due to the social distancing and being sure that people are being safe. But we have services for those ages 14 all the way up to, 100-year-old people. And our goal really is to assist people in employment. And to that end, many times people say, I need to change my career. So what am I going to do? We have $10,000 of training funds available to folks that are looking to either upgrade or to try a new career or what have you. I've always said in the many years that I've been here, we're not about jobs as much as careers. And so when we're looking at our economy on Cape Cod and the islands, where are the jobs and where are the good jobs so that we can keep folks here? I mean, we had an exodus many years ago of young families. Now with CCYP, we have a lot of young professionals. And so it's really important that we train folks and we work with folks that are going to stay here. And so we have what I would call soup to nuts. So if somebody is looking to upgrade their computer literacy skills, we have a computer literacy program. If we have people that are needing their high school diplomas, we have a high set preparation program. We have job search workshops that folks can come into. And right now we have job search workshops that we are presenting online through our membership portal on our website that folks can go into that. And when we reopen, we are planning on, right now, we're in the process of planning on workshops that can be viewed virtually. So we will have a facilitator in a room doing a workshop, and we will be using WebEx for folks to be able to sign on and listen to things like, how do I update my resume? What about interviewing, cover letters, all the things that are necessary in order to land that job. And so we are primed to be able to do that with folks. In 2008, we had lots of people. I anticipate in 2020, we're going to have a lot of people again that are needing employment. The good news is we have so many virtual services that we can offer folks from the islands, P-Town, Bourne, all over the Cape. They can sign on and be able to feel that they're being assisted. We currently have staff in this building. We have career counselors that are talking to folks every day. My message to folks right now is maybe there aren't jobs opening up per se, but get yourself prepared now. Update that resume. Talk to one of our career consultants. Figure out what your next step is going to be. Take the time to do it now. And so we are anticipating that we will have many people that will want our services, and we are ready and equipped to assist them.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Martha. And I think it's important to note what you and Kara both said, which is, that this is this center, the Career Center, but also the Workforce Board are kind of a best kept secret of the Cape. You're part of a network, though, of statewide agencies similar to yours, and you serve both the job seekers, but also employers. And so I know Neila works directly with those employers. Neila, what would you like to share in terms of the services that you offer for employers? What Martha was speaking to at job seekers.
I think most importantly is the idea that nobody knows the Cape better than we do. Our labor force, our labor needs. There are lots of avenues and vehicles for employers to use to recruit talent. And we're not saying not to use those, but when it comes to really a more direct approach, we offer recruiting, sourcing of talent, and the ability for employers to interact with job seekers one-on-one through recruitments, specialized recruitments, where we'll actually vet these candidates so that the ones that we refer are the most qualified for our employers. We provide custom labor market information reports if they're looking at how to best be competitive in terms of salary and benefits and things like that. So again, it's this very much, we are the Cape and Islands and we know it inside out, working in tandem with people like Martha and her staff. We know the job seeker side and we understand the employer's dilemmas at times. So I think that when you couple all of that together, and then you add on top of that, that all of our services are free, that we have a job board called Job Quest that not only caters to the Cape, but as you said, our entire network of 29 career centers across the Commonwealth. We're all aware that people commute over those bridges both ways. And I think when you're facing the situation right now, as we are with people needing to rethink where those jobs are, it may not be their usual commute anymore. This is very beneficial for our employers to know that they can have that kind of reach with no cost by working with a local career center.
That's great. And one thing that people may not be aware of if they are hiring managers or employers is that CCYP and MassHire, we actually have a really cool partnership where anything that's posted to CCYP's job board that we have, if they sign up for a free membership with MassHire, it'll get posted out statewide automatically through that partnership that we have with you all. And we're so grateful for that. And I know a lot of our employers see a great benefit from that. So a lot of people, I mean, it's kind of an everyday word that you're hearing now, unprecedented, right? The unprecedented times that we are living in, and so much is coming down to the issues of jobs and employment and what the needs are for people to bring in income. What unprecedented things are you seeing right now in your day-to-day interactions with workforce and employers? Let's start with Kara, maybe.
As far as, I mean, we, as Martha had touched on, we're busy. I mean, we haven't slowed down since the pandemic started. We might have changed the way that we're doing business, but we certainly haven't slowed down at all. And I think really, as I mentioned to you earlier, it's a little too early for us to kind of dig into the data because we're still in the pandemic. So I think we're monitoring it closely to see how it will affect our priority sectors here on the Cape, because as we all know, hospitality, healthcare, construction, those sectors are so critical to our region. And they also, not only do they help, they're critical to our economy here, but they also promote self-sufficiency, which is so important to enable people and young families to be able to afford to live here on the Cape. And as we all know, that's very difficult. It's so costly. So I think I on the workforce board, I'm really monitoring that to see what that data is going to look like over the next several months as it comes out. But as far as the actual, what the employers are doing right now, I mean, there have been furloughs, there are layoffs. We see that across the region. But we also see that people are still working as well, and they're working remotely, and it's changed. And I think we're going to see, and maybe Martha and Neila can talk to this a little bit more, but I think people are going to land up changing the way they do business too. We've found, even through these Zoom calls, that we don't have to have as many meetings as we once did. You know, I think our time might be utilized a little bit differently as we move forward. And I think that's going to be interesting to see what the effect is of this pandemic across the board for all different hiring sectors.
I think that we're hearing a lot from job seekers as to what are the next steps. You know, many are unsure of how our economy on the Cape and Islands are going to look. Many folks that were employed previously are now on furlough or laid off. And ironically, many of them were with us in 2008 as well. So those folks have reached out to us and said, okay, you helped me land on my feet last time. How are you going to help me and my family land on my feet this time? And we are prepared to do that with in a variety of ways, whether it be remotely, virtually, in person, what have you. I think the message that we need to give our job seekers is that at the end of the day, there will be jobs. What those jobs are and what they look like, we aren't quite sure yet. But we do know that if you stick with us, we will give you the tools that are necessary to be able to become reemployed again.
It's great.
I also wanted to comment on this notion of the remote workforce. I'm very much impressed by the way our employers have embraced this notion of the remote worker. Obviously, larger businesses and corporations have integrated that into their models, but we're seeing small businesses, Main Street businesses, who are really adopting these practices, and it's very favorable. You know, it's been a growing trend among HR professionals. Certainly virtual interviewing has been around for a while. More and more we're seeing virtual onboarding that's been happening, because people realize that good talent isn't necessarily limited by geography. So I'm saying that the paradigm has shifted, and I don't think, as Kara was saying before, we're going to go backwards to the way it was. I think what we're going to find is that because of the affordability of virtual workplaces, we're going to find a lot of our smaller businesses are going to get very creative about how they can, in fact, bring on staff and experts and subject matter experts, et cetera, to help their businesses grow and do all of that virtually.
It's a wonderful.
I think too, for the job seekers, we need to also remind them, if they want training, Cape Cod Community College is doing remote sessions. We will pay for that. And we currently have many folks that are participating in those classes at Cape Cod Community College. And so there is still an opportunity to do training and get yourself, you know, upticked so that you can get a better job when things open up.
Right, that Center for Corporate and Professional Education, or CCAPE, as many of us know, is a wonderful resource for that. And I think they've been putting out some training sessions that are extremely relevant skill set, skill building workshops and trainings that could be helpful to people looking to kind of position themselves as you're recommending during this time. I think even in the midst of such an unprecedented and crazy time, you know, one certainty is that we all still need to be bringing in income and be able to food on our tables. And I think that many are continuing to look for jobs. In spite of that, it sounds like you are staying very busy with job seekers and employers who are listing jobs. Also, I think continuing to look at advancing their careers or moving positions where they had started that search prior to the pandemic and are continuing it, but maybe they're unsure how to do that in the certain circumstances that we're in now. What tips or advice do you have for job seekers during this time, Martha, who are looking to either change jobs or get reemployed?
I think that it's a really great time for folks to do research. People that engage with us, we do assessments. One of them is CareerScope that we can do online. That also gives people, it's an interest inventory, but it also gives people, you know, an idea of what their aptitude is for a particular field. That has been very useful for folks that are looking to be career changers. You know, what skills do I have? What skills do I need to upgrade to where I want to be? I do think that for folks, this is a perfect time to do the research on careers and what your interest is, what your aptitude is, and going forward, what do you want to do? How do you feel what you need to be successful? And I think that folks need to look at that right now. And it gives people hope, because right now I think that people think that they are not in control of their lives, that this pandemic has taken over every part of our existence. But if you can at least come up with a job search strategy or a career action plan for yourself, then you at least will be able to take hold of something that you can control. So I think a good tip for somebody would be to do the research. Look at the labor market. Look at, there's so many resources online. Google Job Quest, which is our free system that is put out by the state of Massachusetts that has assessments on it. You can look at jobs, you can look at workshops. There's thousands and thousands of things that you could do on Job Quest to begin your journey as to where am I going and how am I going to get there so I can be prepared when things start opening up.
I want to echo that by saying that research the companies you're interested in working for. I think it's very important to get a sense of what their requirements and their qualification or they're seeking. And one of the great ways to do that is not only certainly visiting their websites, et cetera, but jumping on LinkedIn, finding the business, finding all the people on LinkedIn who work there, look at their profiles, see what kind of credentials that they have, what kind of skills, what kind of education. It's going to be extremely competitive as things begin to open, and we all know that. Employers are going to want to know what you've been doing during this time. And if you're taking a wait and see attitude, that's way different than saying you were very active in pursuing and acquiring new skills or additional certifications or things like that, because you know that XYZ employer needs and is looking for that. And that speaks volumes. So as Martha was saying, this is just, the best use of your time right now is to do the research and to acquire those new skills.
Yeah, and I think it's important to understand too. Last week we had a great discussion with Cindy Horgan of Cape Cod Children's Place and Ayana Parent of Be Free Coaching and Wellness. And one of the things we talked about, our topic was parenting, during this time and trying to juggle work and parenting at home and school and all the things that families are juggling or caregiving of any kind. But I think there are true feelings of overwhelm for many people out there. And so the sense of, I need to be updating my resume and, I think I just want to put it out there that looking at it as an opportunity, as both of you are saying, not as pressure, but as an opportunity to really revisit what it is that you enjoy doing, what your interests are, how that might translate into a career, and use this as a chance to have that time to really look more closely at your path and where you're headed career-wise is really a gift in a way, if you think about it. It's not pressure, it's not stress, it's look at it as a way to reassess where you're going. And I love that whole idea. I think that's something that could resonate with a lot of people. So thank you both for pointing that out. And it sounds like, there are a ton of resources available that we can definitely work together to compile those and share those out after this session for those that might be interested. So Neila, I want to kind of check in with you on the employer side. There are a lot of employers who've been deemed as essential businesses or have positions that are deemed essential functions by the state. That's come out through the governor's office. Many seem, and I'm not sure of this, but it seems like I'm seeing a lot of hiring signs out there. There are a lot that have vacant positions that they're maybe having trouble filling. What have you seen in that sense, and what tips or advice might you have for businesses either in that essential function space or those that might be looking to reopen in the next couple of weeks? What tips would you give them as they're trying to staff up and get ready for this next phase?
Well, there's absolutely no doubt that consumers, employees, prospective employees, the community are watching very, very closely about how a business is responding to the current situation. And they're going to make decisions, favorably or not, if they feel that the business was doing everything it needed to do to keep their employees safe and their customers safe, et cetera. So we go right back to that notion of brand and brand messaging. It needs to be authentic, and it needs to be frequent, and it needs to communicate from the businesses what it is and what steps they are taking in order to, quote unquote, get back to business. So that a person who is thinking about applying for a job is feeling more confident that of all the places I can go, and there are, you know, similar types of essential worker positions open, where will I feel that I'm being the most protected, valued, and have opportunity for advancement, that this is not just a stopgap measure, but something that may be for the foreseeable future. So I'm seeing more and more businesses, big and small. Again, the small businesses are doing a phenomenal job about this and being, as I said, very authentic in communicating their position in terms of how to bring employees back, how to keep them safe, what they're doing for the community, their volunteer efforts. All of those messages pulled together will tell somebody who is looking for a job, oh, that's the company I want to work for. That's the one I feel most confident about. So I think employers really need to be mindful of those messages. And if you're not getting that information out and you're just waiting to react to somebody who asks you the question, that's not enough. You need to get ahead of it.
Yeah, that's a great point, and how the response really plays into, you know, your brand as a company or an organization, but also as an employer, what you are promising to your employees, and how you will keep them safe is definitely a key element. Not easy, for sure, to think that many steps ahead, but I think that's a great point when you're looking at hiring. So just be upfront about that, even in the job description and posting. Is that what you're saying? To just put it out there in the post?
Well, I'm saying that, and I'm also saying that many times your own employees can be communicating favorably, ideally, that they're feeling heard and they're being valued. And their voices, your employee voices, are probably first and foremost the ones that have the greatest credibility, not the business and not the business leaders, but the employees and the people on the front lines. And we've seen that in the news, and we've seen it everywhere, that people resonate with those who are actually doing the job. So employers can work with their staff in helping to organize and coordinate how some of those messages get out, so that it's not just kind of coming from the top down, but also on level with those people who are looking to fill those positions.
Yeah, and experiencing it every day, because I think that feeling on the ground of, you know, how those policies are being implemented during this time, that's a real feeling, you know, of either you're being protected or you're not. And I think that, as you mentioned, many of the small businesses here have done an amazing and proactive job of doing that. So hopefully we'll see that continue. So I want to switch gears a little bit, because we talked a little bit long-term about, you know, possible trends working and what we might see. And I love the conversation that's happening, and that it's coming more to the forefront around remote work opportunities. Many people know CCYP is a remote office. We do not have a physical office space anymore, and we made that switch toward the end of last year. We have definitely been vocal advocates for any organizations and businesses that are able to incorporate remote work more into their workplace. It's a real recruitment tool as a benefit for especially younger workers, those with family and caregiving responsibilities, just to have that opportunity to have a bit more flexibility in your schedule. And I think that hopefully we'll see that become more and more the case as people start to rethink what work looks like. And this has really forced that conversation, I think, in a way that could be very positive long-term. In the meantime, we have some shorter term trends and data that MassHire and the Workforce Board are watching very closely. You and the state department that you're under are really correct me if I'm wrong, really the holder and collector of a lot of the data around employment, labor workforce, and have been tracking very closely. And I know Kara has said a lot of it's too early to tell. I know though some of that preliminary information, even from March though, has shown our young workforce, and when I say young workforce, kind of that 25 to 44 age range, has really seen disproportionate impacts as compared to a lot of other ages. Largely they're, in the workforce and of course account for a big chunk of that, but they don't make up as much of our population. So maybe they're half the unemployment filings, but only a third of our population region-wide. Kara, I don't know if you feel able to speak to that at all, or even in a general sense.
Sure. I mean, you're right. We definitely do have less of that demographic here on the Cape. I think we have about 34,000 millennials here on the Cape. And as you mentioned, those are the folks that tend to have young families as well. So they're an important demographic for us and one that we are watching. And as you noticed the other day, we are in the process of redoing our regional blueprint, which is where we will be incorporating a lot of the data. We're partnering with UMass Donahue Institute, and they've been exceedingly helpful to us in tracking some of this really critical data that will be the focus for us when we move forward and with our release our new blueprint. Our blueprint, for those that aren't aware of, really sets forth our priority sectors. I don't think we're going to see a lot of change in that. Our priority sectors being healthcare, Neila's nodding, healthcare, hospitality, construction. There's not going to be a lot of movement in that. And like I mentioned earlier, it's still too early to find out how COVID-19 is going to impact the hiring of each of those sectors. And to Martha's point, there may be training opportunities in those sectors. And so I think those are things that we'll also look at as we expand upon our blueprint over the next coming months.
Wonderful. Yeah, I think we, of course, in collaboration with you, we're grateful to be included in that blueprint process and the work that's being done there. And CCYP, of course, watches most closely that 25 to 44 age range and kind of what's happening there. So I'm definitely curious to see. I know our food service industry and culinary professionals here on the Cape have also been a group that's been disproportionately impacted, many of which are tipped or hourly wage workers. What kind of perspective can any of you offer? Are you seeing a lot of workers from that sector coming through the virtual doors, I guess?
I think that we are seeing a lot of those folks, and many of them are saying, well, maybe I need to look at something that would be more able to be reemployed quicker. And so that is the population that we're somewhat looking at to hopefully retrain into a field where they can make a living and remain employed, be able to support their families, and to not be as seasonal as they currently are. We see a lot of seasonal folks that have been doing seasonal jobs for many, many years. And then many of them they jump off that ladder and say, something, I think I need to do something different now for my family. And we have many, many success stories regarding folks that have left a seasonal job and gone on to training and then become reemployed into something that is year-round and can sustain their life.
Wonderful. Well, we're gonna kind of close it out, I think, for today. What other information or observations or tips or anything would any of you like to share? I just want to kind of open it up toward the end here of our conversation.
One of the things that
go ahead, Kara.
One of the things that I think is really important for people to be aware of is that the Career Center system helps job seekers of all levels. Like, I really want to make sure that people are aware of that. And Martha touched on this, that they have opportunities for students all the way up. But I think it's also very important that we help, that the Career Center helps job seekers of all levels, of all skill levels. And that's really important because I think we're going to see unemployment doesn't necessarily care whether you have a college degree or not. And the Career Center is going to be able to help all job seekers. And that's really important and something that I think everybody should be really mindful of.
It's a great point, Kara. And I think from that initial data, it looked like management positions were one of the highest in terms of unemployment filings. So I think your point is definitely well taken, that, yeah, there's no discrimination there in terms of it's just affecting everybody across the board. So that's great to know that you.
And I think too, there's that fallacy oftentimes that the MassHire system is unemployment. So oftentimes people don't want to come into the MassHire office. So they don't want to come into the Career Center system when they're open. But the staff at the Career Center is exceedingly knowledgeable and helping, again, job seekers of all backgrounds and of all educational backgrounds. And I just can't stress that enough. I mean, it's just so important.
I would encourage people to check us out online. Our website is www.masshire-cicc, which is capeandislands.com. And our telephone number is 508-771-JOBS or 508-771-5627. And I would encourage people to give us a call. When we do reopen to foot traffic, just come in and see us. See what we have. You know, it doesn't hurt to check us out and, you know, look at the resources that might be out there that you didn't know about.
And I would encourage employers to reach out to us. We're in the process of coordinating and developing virtual job fairs, which we will be hosting. And we can also do them on an individual one-on-one basis with each employer so that we can provide the avenue for them to reach out to prospective job seekers and fill those positions, be they essential or otherwise. And all of that information, as well as so much more, is available on our website, as Martha was saying.
That's great. Are there any other resources that you all could point people to, whether they're a job seeker or employer and they're looking for more beyond the MassHire site?
Well, I do want to suggest that through the MassHire website or through our social platform, we do weekly blogs speaking to both job seekers and employers. And what we're basically doing is we're sifting through so much of the information, and there's a lot of information out there, but we're sifting through it and pulling it all together in one place so that depending on the topic that you're most needing to get information on, we've kind of done a lot of that groundwork for you through our blogs. And the other resource that I have found is very compelling is the fact that, yes, we have incredible skills training, and many times that subsidized training is your best avenue, but there's a lot of free training available online. If you go to openculture.com, they list all these courses available from universities and enterprises that are free and that can help you determine maybe what your next steps are in terms of certification and further education for your career.
And those are free resources that people can access, it sounds like.
Exactly.
So maybe we can add those to our list to share out after this, and I'd love to. Additionally, CCYP has now a new membership level that's our job board membership. So it includes only access to our job board for employers that are looking to hire. And through the end of June, we're actually offering that free of charge to any employer that's hiring for essential position postings. We may end up widening that depending on what it looks like on this next Monday after the order is updated for the state. But as of right now, any essential position postings are free, and you just have to reach out to us at info@capecodyoungprofessionals.org to get signed up for that.
And Lauren, we're in the process too of updating our website. So we've added a COVID-19 tab. So that will include all the important information that's being dispersed from the state, and different, whether it's a virtual town hall or other things that would be important both for employers and for job seekers to be aware of in the region.
That's great, Kara, because that information seems to be changing pretty much
Daily.
I'm really glad that you pointed that out. And I think particularly when it comes to, unemployment filing and support of that kind, those trainings have been offered really regularly. The town halls to answer people's questions if they're having a hard time getting a hold of somebody, since those lines have just been inundated lately. As everybody knows, the town halls can be a great resource having trouble filing or need support in that way for unemployment in the meantime. So I want to reinforce again, I am very grateful to all of you for what you do. Thank you for the services that you provide both for job seekers and for our employers here on the Cape. And I hope that this session has been informative for people who may not have been aware of you before, and maybe for those that haven't had to use your resources in the past, this might be a great boon to them during this time. So any final thoughts, any closing thoughts from any of you?
Well,
Thank you for having us, Lauren.
Absolutely, and I just want to reiterate Martha's comments, and Martha is our veteran amongst us in that she's been through this before, and she knows that we come out of this and people are successful, and there will be jobs when we come through this. And so, yes, people need to not only stay active, but stay hopeful as well.
Absolutely. I share that sentiment as well. And we're looking forward to the appropriate time when we can all reopen, when it's safe, not only for our staff, but our job seekers as well. And we'll be working obviously hand in hand with our Career Center and making sure that those in our region get the services that they're in need of. So thank you so much for this opportunity.
Yeah. Thank you, Lauren.
Thanks.
Thank you all so much. Really appreciate it. Thank you again for taking the time, and all the best to everyone out there. There are tons of great resources, and I love the message that, this is temporary, and there are people here who want to help as I hope everyone can see. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.